Hello and welcome to Heart of the Matter, where it's again an absolute joy to have Amed join us from Planetary Intelligence. Real honour, and yeah, we're looking forward to tonight to sort of discuss sort of on the sort of vampirism, which Michael Tsarion talks about, and about finding your sovereignty in that. So that's going to be our discussion for tonight, and I just hope that you listeners will take something away from the discussion that we take and where it goes with it, with the flow of it all. So yeah, welcome brother, great to have you here.
Thank you, Kelvin. It's always a pleasure to be doing this talk with you. Yeah, so it's an important subject, and you know, Michael's covered it in depth, really. I mean, we're only kind of students of these great researchers who've come before us, and hopefully we can glean some further insights, and also simplify or give a different sort of perspective on the same thing. Because, you know, I always see that, angles are really important, and we all have a certain level of perception when we read into the research, you know, be it conspiratorial or be it psychological, based on, you know, the more deeper aspects of this whole thing, of this thing we call life that we're living in, and, you know, the importance of spirituality, because, you know, the psychology is part of the spirituality. And if you, what for me, the way I perceive it is that we are gathering as individual souls, gathering a moral character, a moral eternal personality. And, you know, what is right, what is good, what is loving, and, you know, and that is really what it comes to: shine that heart of yours and shine its light in the darkness of this simulation that we live in, you know. So it's important, definitely important. So yeah, I mean, what do you want to start on? What do you want to start with?
Oh well, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things is for a lot of people is about being stuck in that loop, you know, especially when you've got a sort of a vampiristic sort of type of you know, person, you know.
Yep.
You know, and it, you know, we say person, but it's not really the right term, really. I'll say human being, you know, but and also, you know, it can be people that are actually on, you know, that path, you know, they're on, as Michael Tsarion talked about, you know, they're on that path where even, you know, they're sort of, you know, on this path of the finding out who they are and stuff and all that, but they're still locked into all this vampirism, you know, and how it affects the people around around them, you know. So I find it all very intriguing. So I mean, if you can maybe sort of maybe break that down a bit and maybe share a bit more on that, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I refer back to, I mean, recently, just to add as a caveat in this whole discussion, you know, I've been fascinated by Jason Breshears' work. You know, though he claims to be a chronologist, he's come across some really amazing research with regards to, you know, what he calls the immortal soul within. And, you know, he has his own opinions, because he says this is his own personal opinion. And, you know, I recommend people to, I went and bought the book recently from Jason Breshears' channel, from Archaix. And yeah, I cannot recommend enough, you know, to get this book. I'll just share it here on the screen just so people can get an idea. And yeah, this book is fantastic, and I'm pretty much halfway into it now, and I've watched all the Immortal within playlist on his website. So, you know, I thoroughly recommend, you know, anybody who wants to kind of get out of the negativity that we're stuck in. This is a sort of loop. It's a psychic loop. And if you, again, this comes back to, you know, the inner work, the shadow work. You know, we've been talking about this countless times here, and you know, I've lost count of how many times we've talked about it, but it's important nonetheless. But, you know, people have got to do the work in themselves. There's so much distractions in this world, And you can go throughout your life just existing and just being, you know, sitting down and watching the research without doing anything on yourself. You know, what good is knowledge if it's not applied? And, you know, that's what Bruce Lee says, knowing is not enough, you must do. And, you know, if you're not doing, then you're not changing. You're not going to change the loop, the psychic loop you're in. You know, you can claim that you got energy vampires around you, but you may not even be aware you're vamping off somebody else. So, you know, like attracts like. Vampires suck off each other too, by the way. You know, so don't think it's just like they just look for the good pure bloods. They're probably feeding off each other too. So, you know, be aware, arm yourself with the tools of psychology, and, you know, get out of the negative feedback loop. And the only way to do that is to deprogram the trauma. And it's also to incorporate what he calls a positive feedback loop, which is calling breaking pattern. If you're stuck in a rut in your life, and you have the same events, the same feeling every day, you're in a routine, and that routine is just making you feel miserable or negative, and you know, you feel you're stuck, it's because you are doing it to yourself. Ultimately, you're constructing that road that you can't blame God, you can't blame the system, and you know, you can half blame the system, but then there is a point where you have to start taking responsibility for yourself and for your actions, the way you relate to yourself. You know, most of us are stuck in the self-image of the ego, thinking that's who we are, when in fact that's not who we are. We are the immortal soul. It's the I am, you know, it's the I am that goes beyond the character that this Amed is, that's animated right now and speaking. You know, I'm just using the ego as a form of expression for the soul. And when you get into that practice of articulating and expressing the soul within from your heart intelligence, you know, because the heart chakra, people think that when you unlock chakras, you go from the bottom up, right? But actually what happens, and I've had a full Kundalini experience in the past, working with energy and martial arts. What happens in a full Kundalini is the energy gets unlocked in the bottom 3 chakras. It bypasses the heart. It doesn't actually open the heart. It goes up into the throat chakra, then the third, and the crown. And through the crown, it comes down to open up the heart. And the heart is the chrysalis. It's the ultimate chakra to open up. You know, it's that's where it's at. That is the unlocking of the power of the soul. And when you do that, you stop becoming a non-playing character. You actually start to become a character that is creating and not letting the simulation or the world dictate your options. You're creating, you're going into the unknown. Then you're creating something that only you can create in your life. You're not replicating what the masses are, because the masses, when you are in that negative feedback loop, you're no different than the masses and the brainwashed. That's the thing that you have to get. This is the thing that I want to kind of get out there, because I don't think people realize it. It's not enough knowing about the conspiratorial aspects of this reality. It's not enough knowing about the elite and all the stuff they do. That's not enough. Okay, so for you, because you are not, because you haven't healed yourself or made any attempt to break pattern from the masses, you know, because most people that are still stuck in the system, we're still enslaved in it through the monetary system. And to truly be sovereign, one has to start creating a new paradigm and a new reality tunnel, which what which is coined by Jason Breshears. You know, he calls it a new reality tunnel. Create a new reality tunnel by creating a positive feedback loop, because the default is negative. But in saying that, don't avoid the negative either, in the sense of if there is trauma, because that is negative, trauma is negative. So you have to face the negative too, to get into the positive, the real positive, not the pretend positive that the New Ages tell you. You know, the New Ages, you know, it's all about positive vibes and all that, but most of them are so traumatized, and you can see it in their characters. They're all pretending to be holier than thou, and they've all got these spiritual egos that are bigger than the average ego of the brainwashed. You know, it's ridiculous. You're no different than them. And so yeah, again, so it's a paradox. That's the key. Understand that you are a paradox. Once you get that you're a paradox, you can then work with the left and the right and create a symbiosis and a balance within, between your left and right brain, between the split personality that we are, between the super ego id, you know, and the three rulers basically of your psyche, which is the external world, the super ego, and the id. This is something that Freud has talked about, you know, about consciousness and you know, ultimately it's your conscience that you're waking up, and the conscience can only be fully activated when the heart is in perfect harmony with the mind. So, because that's where the conscience comes from. That's where you are able to know what's moral and what's immoral, you know, and you can then use that tool to see if you're attracting the right people in your life. So it's really important to become discerning and use this tool called the brain and do the inner work, you know, do the inner work. So yeah, because the vampirism aspect, now for me, this is, you know, the vampirism aspect is based on the so-called NPCs or the brainwashed, whatever you want to call them. You know, I don't want to dehumanize them too much, but some of them really are empty. I sometimes look into their eyes and there's nothing there. There's no light. It's like The Walking Dead, you know, and then there's certain people I meet, you know, every now and then, and I see, wow, actually there's life in their eyes. They can actually see, they notice connection. They notice genuine authenticity. They notice, depth, spiritual depth. You know, I can meet so many like-minded people in this in this community, the truth community, right? I can meet so many, but not a lot of them lack the spiritual depth that I do. And this is not that me saying I'm better than them. It's not that. It's just because I'm further along, having done the inner work, having gone through the suffering, having gone through countless amount of years of pain and suffering to eventually overcome and learn. So I can heal myself, and then in turn speak out and heal others through my words, through, you know, what I've learned in terms of martial arts and the human body, you know, using energy and chi, and through knowledge, through real scientific knowledge, not the fake science. Really, that's the science they promote. You see how they invert stuff. So it's when you go through enough suffering, you meet those characters, you meet the vamps, you meet the psychotics, you meet the narcissists. They're all vamps anyway. They all fall under the same bracket. But it's being discerning, because even within the truth community, I get vamps that are truthers. And I'll say that out loud because it's something that I have experienced as a fact. And I don't have time for people like that. I don't care if we're like-minded and we know about that sort of stuff. But if you're coming to suck, my time is valuable. My time on this plane is valuable, in this realm is very valuable. If you're going to suck me out of my time and my energy, my life force, I don't have time for you. I really don't. And you know, people get stuck in these trivial matters, you know, and don't talk about really the most important, you know, more important in-depth things. It's more about people. A lot of people are still interested in the narrative because they're still stuck in the gossip world. You know, this politician's doing that, Trump is doing this, you know, Biden's doing that, Russia's doing this, and I don't even have time for any of it. Sure, I do keep you know, a sort of radar around it, but I don't go and delve into it and give it my energy, because that's also a form, that's the big vamp, by the way. The narrative is the one that's vamping you. So if you want to talk about a vamp, yeah,
but it's just there to distract you from yourself, isn't it? It's just all there just to take you away from finding out who you know, if you choose to. Because if you do go there, you know, like me on my journey and stuff and all that, you know, you start to then see things that are way more deeper than that stuff. Yeah, and that's been my experience, and I'm glad I've chosen the path that I've taken, you know, and standing in that, and yeah, and just what's the word I'm looking for? Being proud of who I am, and to have that real loving relationship with myself, you know, which we've both discussed about, you know, because it's very easy then to get caught up on, you know, relationships from other people, and you know, we always look for fulfillment from other people, even, don't we? And you know, it's just like ultimately it has to come from ourselves, you know, to find that real love for ourselves, you know, because that's the best relationship you can have, really, and that's something that I'm working on. So yeah.
I mean, the importance is that people also don't get the misconception that you should be an island unto yourself, because we still need others.
Oh, of course.
We still need people, we still need community, we still need family. But what we're saying is more about getting rid of the insecurities in ourselves and the trauma responses that sadly our parents, who also had traumas, have passed down onto us through the system. And it's not no fault of their own. It's just that, you know, it's all about awareness, and it's all about the willingness to want to change your state of being. If you're in a state of fear, you're still in a state of trauma. And once you realize that, it's a very simple thing. Are you feeling fearful? Do you wake up and feel anxious about your life and the world? Because if you are, then you're still in that trauma state. And you still need to address certain things in yourself. And for that, you need to talk to people. For that, you need to listen to people who have the right knowledge to give to you. So yeah, inner work is not some solo mission. You just go and recluse in a cave somewhere and hope to come out as Buddha, you know. so it's important to, you know, to realize that we do need others, and we need people to speak to. And you know, as you know, Kelvin, we've spoken about shadow work. Shadow work isn't just about sitting on your own. It's not about sitting on your own. It's about how you're getting triggered by other people. So we still need people even for the shadow work. But it's knowing that you are okay within yourself. You have love within yourself, and you have love for yourself and compassion for yourself, so that you may be able to share that love and compassion to those who are on the same, you know, vibe or the same state that you're in of awareness. And that way you're then creating that positive feedback loop that Jason Breshears talks about, because it's not good enough just to think about, like the law of attraction cult tell you. And you know, thinking positively is not going to make you manifest it. You know, it's more It is imagining it, feeling it, truly desiring it, truly wanting it, and then acting as if you've got it. Really going there and taking the action, because you need the movement in the physical world for the manifestation in the physical world to happen. So yeah, it all ties in, all of it. If you allow the vampires, now I want to address something with the vampires. These are the traits, right? These are the traits. They subtly make you do stuff that you don't want to do and you feel pressured to do. And that's to do with your inner work as well. If you have done your inner work, you know you value your time and you value your energy. So you can easily say no to these people. But because you don't, or you haven't, then you say yes because you feel compelled to, because you feel they're better than you, because you don't have that same self-worth in yourself. So there are people like that who will take your time and make you do things for them with no reciprocal benefit to you. Now, reciprocal means give and take. It's a sort of balance of it's a loving relationship where you're able to give and take. A friend needs my help, for example. Yeah, sure, I'll go and help. But if I've got something important on that day, don't call me on that day when I've got something important and you know I've got something important, and then tell me you need my help that day when it's not really that important, if that makes sense. And then try to make me feel guilty for not coming to help. That's not a true friend. So they guilt trip you. That's the first thing. Or gaslighting is another. Now that's a term that's been used a lot, I think, these days, and people are aware of what gaslighting is. You know, it's turning guilt onto you. And this is something that's been used for a very, very long time. It's, you know, religions, the major religions have used these same psychological mind tricks to make you feel guilty for your sins, you know. And it's that psychology, that very same psychology, that keeps you in a loop and that keeps you enslaved to these vampires. So a narcissist will gaslight you, you know, and do the same thing. And they also belittle you to make themselves feel better. And same thing even with partners. People don't realize this sometimes with partners who have the same sort of relationship. One's a bully and one's a victim. And they don't realize it. It's very subtle, the language, but when you listen carefully, you make me feel this. You've made me do that. You know, it's your fault that this happened. And it's this sort of language, which is no different. It's what I call they're completely unconscious of themselves, that they're actually playing out their trauma victim mentality that they used to have, perhaps with their mom and dad, how they used to relate to each other. And the loop goes on, and it's like a loop within a loop within a loop, and it passed down to each generation with no end. And you've got to break that loop and break free, you know, to become an individuated soul, to become an individual truly in every sense of the word, meaning indivisible. You're distinguished from others in the sense of you're not part of the herd anymore. And when you're no longer part of the herd in your character, then you are what Jason calls an errant. You know, you're the one that breaks the program. You're the one that breaks down this artificial simulation. So it's needing a lot of energy just for you to function. And that's the thing. It's about taking that power back from them, because what we're doing is we're feeding that very same, you know, the very same elite with this sort of energy, and giving them the power by doing the same thing. You know, when we give our attention to these same people and we don't say no, they will exist in your reality until you realize the toxicity of that relationship of these vampires, you know. And it is suck the lifeblood out of you, really. I mean, not only do they occupy your time, they are so good at what they do. They occupy your mind when they're even away.
Yeah, I've had that. Yeah.
So in a way, that's mind control.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, they're very good at it. And you know, for me, that's because I'm still questioning reality, and I really like Jason Breshears' perspective on this, because he thinks that 66.6% are the NPCs. Like in the Matrix, they can be taken over by Agent Smiths at any time, because they're just part of the simulation. You know, not to say they don't feel or don't have any of that stuff, but what I'm saying is they're being run on auto mode. They're not actually aware of themselves or even self-conscious, in the sense of being aware that they are more than just the flesh suit that we are, if that makes sense. You know, so yeah, it comes a time when you have to start to, in this research, actually implementing how you're going to interact with the world. And you know, and it's no good being in a negative state in your life day in, day out, because you're doing the favor, and you're no different than the masses. You know, the masses, the brainwashed, are in fact you know, part of the problem, and you also in turn become part of the problem. So there is no mass awakening. You know, I've heard this so many times online. Mass awakening. We're having a mass. There is no mass awakening. Because if that happened, if that truly happened, then this whole narrative would have gone down by now. And it's not the case. I actually see the opposite. And soon, I think as well, like, you know, another thing that vampires do is, energy vampires, what they do is, when you catch them out on a bad behavior, what happens is that they start to then feed you nicely. They start to speak to you nicely all of a sudden, and charm you, and give you praise. And do you see how it works?
Oh yeah, you see all like the sort of the mind tricks, you know. You can't help but not start to see these things once you start on your journey, you know. And yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. It's a horrible way of, you know, dealing with it. But if you're allowing that, like I said, you deserve it. Because you're allowing it into your life. And you know, really be careful with who you let into your life, but also don't be such a recluse either, to the point that you're so fearful of letting people in. So let people in, let them bit by bit, and then see who they are, see what they're like. You know, a lot of us have lost a lot of friends during the beginning of the lockdown. I mean, some people lost all their friends and all their family as a result. So a lot of us are in a similar situation, where we're meeting like-minded people, but in turn, like-minded is not enough. It comes back to the spiritual depth of the individual. And are you on that same frequency in the heart? Because that's what the heart is about. You know, is there genuine care? Is what you always talk about, Kelvin, is care, real care between this and the other. Because once you start letting in the same people, even though they're seemingly awake, right? You know, they still will behave with you no different than the masses and the brainwashed. you know. So don't think for 1 minute that because they know about the conspiratorial aspects that they are actually awake, because they're not.
And this is it, you know, you said about real sort of care, real genuine care, and real genuine love, you know. And that goes beyond our own, what we think that may be, you know. And these things, like you said, start to come to us in our realizations, little by little on our journey, you know. And I've had to do that. I've had to call something out, you know. You know, and how can I put it? It was like as I called out what I needed to be called out, did I put my arms around them? Did I forgive them? No, I didn't. I just said what needed to be said in a very direct, firm way, you know. And I had to say, you know, I've heard all these words before. Live it, live it. I've heard all these words before, you know, and that's how I had to be, just direct. Well, I don't want to hear the words, live it. You know?
Well, you still have to forgive them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because again, everybody is an external reflection of you. So
yeah,
when you forgive them, you forgive yourself. But don't forget, that's the key. You can forgive. I mean, this is an age-old saying, isn't it? So, you know, don't forget, because the whole Stockholm syndrome is falling in love with your kidnapper. Don't let them kidnap you emotionally or psychologically in that way, because that's what they do. So they'll say, sorry, I won't do it again. I'm sorry. But, you know, there's a limit to that. You know, when the behavior repeats over and over again. And I don't blame, you know, and they can't blame you either for it, because they're they have codependent issues. They have insecurities, major. You don't think for 1 minute, the energy vampire is a superior individual. In fact, they're the most inferior and the weakest type. It's just that they put on a mask and a front to look superior and better and stronger and all these other things. So, you know, don't be fooled by it. Don't be fooled even by physical beauty. You know, because, you know, the physical beauty is only dictated to us by, you know, what we've been perceiving through the programming, you know, what the magazines and so on the media tells you what beauty is, you know, and beauty is subjective. It's always been subjective to the individual. So, you know, again, it's like for men, master your root chakra, master your lusts, because you could meet a very toxic woman and she could be very, very pretty physically. And if you're not switched on, then you'll be sucked into a vampiric relationship, and then you'll be a great food for her for the rest of your days.
And then you have to live in that.
You
have to live in that nightmare.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're saying this, and you know, I was in a relationship. You know, I think before all the sort of the mad stuff started coming along. You know, from Archaix asylum, as I call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was in a relationship, and I knew I had to get out of it, because I knew that if I stayed in that relationship, you know, it would have been hell. It would have been hell for me, you know. And I just told her, I said, I'm not the right man for you, you know. And I had to let her go, because, yeah, I knew I'd have lived a life that just wouldn't have been good for me, you know. It would have destroyed me, you know, and stuff. So I had to know that I had to just move on, you know. So yeah, and that's even before I sort of was on this journey, but I had that knowing inside of me, you know. And it's not fair for me, and it's not fair for her, you know. So yeah.
Well, you help her grow as well by putting down that boundary and saying, look, you know, you have to end it. It's very hard to end relationships. It's not an easy thing, you know, by any means of the imagination. It's like it's hard on the heart. It's hard. And genuine, especially the longer you've been with that woman, you know, or you know, whoever you are, or the man. So yeah, it's Yeah, it's very difficult, but
Mm.
you have to honor yourself and have that integrity
Mm.
and love and compassion for yourself,
Mm.
because it's better to break someone's heart than to have your life destroyed as a result of it. So
Mm.
it's as well, I see people like in that relationship, it gets deadened. You become dead. You become the walking dead.
Mm.
You go on autopilot. And I've seen people in certain relationships, they're just together because they're too terrified to end it. But you can see the toxicity, the way they talk to each other, the way they treat each other. There's no love language between them.
Mm.
There's no, and also 9 times out of 10, there's always somebody using a substance to escape from it, meaning alcoholism. They puff a lot of cannabis or whatever just to escape. And I know that from self experience as well.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's you've got to be also, yeah, not guarded, what's the word, you've got to be aware, you've got to really be aware.
Mm.
And you have to be humble enough to admit when you're wrong as well.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really important, navigating this. And if you're with the wrong person, you spend a whole lifetime not
Yeah.
being who you truly are, because they're a reflection
Yeah.
of you, of your inner state too. If you're
Mm.
allowing that in your life,
Mm.
you're no different than they are.
Yeah.
That's who you are. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if I look back to that time, well, what was that relationship really built on? Was it really built on a really, sort of foundation that I'm sort of now on that journey in? Back then, not really. I know what it was based on. Really, it was just based purely on the sex thing,
Yep.
And this is it. But once you get past that, you start to see things. Again, all of that stuff is being put into us. All the mind programming over the years and how we look at women and all this sort of stuff. And I'm on my journey on that, and stuff. So, yeah, and a lot of women will use that, to manipulate and stuff as well. So it's just seeing these little things, but I just wanted to go back to something you just said earlier as well, about someone's bad behavior, and having to sort of call it out, and I just wanted to make myself clear on that yes, I called it out, but I love her. I absolutely love that woman. But, there's a difference between that and then putting up with the bad behavior, but of course, I want the best for her. That's what I want, but she has to do that for herself. Nobody
Yeah,
else,
you can't.
nobody else can do it.
Yep.
Nobody else can do it. She has to do the inner work, like I'm learning to do. So
yeah, and also sometimes you outgrow each other as well. That's what happens sometimes. In my case, that was the case from my last relationship. Even though that outgrowing was quite a tumultuous one, but it needed to happen for me in that way, because that was what, that's where I was in my life at the time. So yeah, sometimes you outgrow another person. If they're not growing with you, or they not refuse to, but if they don't have that willingness to see that change with you and that growth, and because the way I see empathy work, a truly empathic person who's in a relationship, if I'm with a woman, and she was in a relationship with me, there is empathy is one of the most important things, so if that empathic connection isn't there, because one's growing, and if you're growing towards being a better individual, a better man, then surely your partner also wants to be a better woman and grow with you. And when you discover more moral principles in your spiritual journey here, you start to see, okay, I'm done with hanging around with these type of friends, because all they do is drink alcohol and talk about, you know, not to say they're lesser than me, but as in like, I'm outgrowing that. That to me is becoming a moral thing. I don't want to be the guy who drinks every Saturday and Sunday and Friday night and parties and you know, I still meet up with you as a friend, but I'm not going to do that anymore. And if that's going to distance you from me, fine, you know. But I'm just giving you sort of really vague examples here, but just to kind of give you a general idea, you know, of what growth means, you know. So yeah, it's down to the individual at the end of the day. But it's a wonderful life. Remember that, because when you when you strip away your life from negative people, or people that are in a negative feedback loop, and you bring in more positive people who see you for who you are, value you for who you are, what happens is that creates a more positive life and a more fulfilling life, because you're creating that new reality for yourself.
Yeah, that's it. This is it. Yeah. And like you said, we always have a choice, don't we? You know, choice of who we want to be around, you know. And yeah, that's all part of it as well, you know. I've had times, you know, where I've come away and I didn't really understand it at the time. Now I understand it more. You come away sometimes, you feel like crap sometimes, you know, and you then begin to understand about how that energy is sucking you, you know, and stuff and all of that.
Yeah.
Especially me, you know, because I understood as well about being sort of Pisces, you know, that we tend to pick up on all those things, you know, the sort of the energies and stuff like that. So yeah, so I'm having to be a bit more sort of in tune with that, a bit more careful, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a question I have for you actually, Amed, is so like you have all these energies and you're feeling like crap. How would you work with those energies so that you're shedding yourself of those negative energies that you may pick up on?
I tend to go and give it to the trees.
Okay.
I just kind of like imagine I feel it there, and I go to a tree and I just put my hand on the tree, and just let it just feel that it's just taking it away from me and then giving me back good energy. You know, because a tree is just a tree, you know. And it's the Druids knew about the power of trees and the power of the groves, and there is power. They're like very strong, super strong antennas. They're great at absorbing negative energy, but they will most certainly give you positive energy. It's like an earth wire, you know. You're too electric, you're too zapped sometimes, you know. It's like that cartoon, you know, when you see like a zapped character, their hair is all frizzled and they look like, you know, they're just drained by the whole zapping of it. So that's why you have an earth wire, and you know, electricians, you know, there's always an earth wire to neutralize the live wire, the electric, to neutralize it so it doesn't burn out the you know, the electric device that is functioning on. So yeah, trees, I find meditation works, exercise, you know. Sometimes you just gotta go and create more energy, and what better way than exercise and movement. So yeah, those are the techniques that I use. It's all psychosomatic. So yeah, you know, again, fill yourself with positive things. The other thing as well is, for those of you out there who are introverts, I'm an introvert. I've always been an introvert growing up. And to be honest, I've never chose to do podcasts. When you get to know me, I'm very quiet. I don't talk a lot. I only talk a lot once I'm on YouTube or doing a podcast. I'm quiet. You know, when you get to know me day to day, I'm not really a very talkative person, unless there is, you know, certain deep subject matters you want to talk about. You know, there's always that. But look, don't get me wrong, I'm a fun-loving guy just like anybody else. You know, everybody else. I still enjoy traveling, and you know, doing various activities and exercises and so on. So yeah, I like having fun too. But it's yeah, I as an introvert, I find social gatherings quite draining. If I do too many social things, I get drained. That's why, you know, I tend to kind of live in a solitary life, really. I love my books, you know, my research. This is what it's about for me. I can get lost in my books, and get lost in all the research. And, you know, I love digging in deeper into collating all this information. And because eventually I will be coming out with material. Eventually there will be a sort of combination of all these researchers like Santos, like Jason Breshears, like Michael Tsarion, and so many others, you know, just bringing all that research and actually stripping away the stuff that we don't need and just getting to the core of it. Look, this is where we need to pay attention to, guys, because this is what these great individuals have researched and spent their entire lives doing, so that you know, people like me can take it forward and you know, culminate that knowledge and bring something to the table that's new, you know, which is actually old. You know, there's nothing new under the sun, so to speak, but it's that we're remembering back the lost knowledge. And the lost knowledge, the real knowledge, is really answering the biggest question, which is, what is this? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? What does it mean to be a human being, and what are we doing here? What is the purpose of this? You know, what is there an end to this? And, you know, and there is, the answers are out there. And
yeah, it's a fundamental question. You know, I still keep asking that, you know, who am I? You know, it's just ongoing, you know, and we are, you know, like a mystery to ourselves, you know.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful that we are a mystery to ourselves, but at the same time, I recognize that I am not the body. I'm not this flesh suit, in a sense, but at the same time, I honor this body. I look after it, you know. If you want longevity, and if you want to experience the best life, you look after it's like your car, you know, you look after your car if you want it to last you a long time. If you driving it around recklessly and don't honor it, you know, you could be without a car one day, or it breaks down and you won't have the same car again. It's the same sort of thing, but you know, without you can't buy another one, by the way. Well, you do when you reincarnate, but that's another story. You know?
I mean, I see that, you know, we are more, you know, we are more than than, you know, this Jason talks about avatar, you know. We're more than that, you know, the spiritual, you know.
Yeah, he calls it the immortal soul, and he's not saying anything new, by the way. This is something that's found in all the spiritual religions, even ancient Egypt. You know, that we are immortal, we are truly immortal. And when we get to the point that we recognize that, then we're able to live a more fulfilling life, and the fear of death goes away, because that's the ultimate anyway, is the fear of death. You know, we compromise our own integrity and our spirituality because we think this is the only life we're going to live. So we bow down to the controllers and do things that still obey the system, to our own detriment, to our own spiritual detriment. But when you realize you're mortal, there's nothing to fear. They can throw whatever they want at you, war, weapons, whatever they want to throw at you. I don't let it enter my imagination. That's the thing, and that's what you know. You become a magnet to that sort of thing. If you're always fighting the system, well, guess what? The system will get you. Whether you like it or not, they will get you, because you're dealing with a titanic machine that's way, way, way more powerful, over this reality. And why engage with it when you can create your own reality tunnel? That's what I'm thinking. And this is what like, if this is a we're reincarnated, and this is a simulation, and this is why it's so important to understand the meaning of your life, and the meaning of or the what reality is, what reality truly is, so that we're not stuck in these things trying to prove things to everyone, with force. And people can just look at you and be like, how is he living his life so wonderfully? He's so positive all the time, or she's also positive all the time. And then people will be drawn to you naturally, you see, because you're living by example. And they can see how fulfilled and how unfazed you are, and how fearless you are in your life. And that is the key, for me. That's, if you want change, if you want to help change people and wake people up, live like that. Like that.
Yeah, so I was saying it, be the change.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, it comes back to that, but it's easier said than done, because the journey is it's a long one, and people really don't have the time as well. People just tend to have this sort of sporadic thing with their research, and they'll watch this video and that video and this video, and it's all good watching videos, but actually make time to read. And that's also part of it, because if you're not getting any source material, and you're relying on somebody else telling you that, do so at your own peril, because you're no different than listening to a priest or an imam or a rabbi, right, in a synagogue. That's no different. So if you truly want to be somebody that's an individual, do your research on certain books, go to the source material, and start using this tool to think. And when you are able to, you start to grow that conscience in yourself. Grow this to grow this, like, get to the truth of you. And that's the most important truth to ever find out. There is no higher truth than the truth of you. Once you realize your own truth, then there is no other truth to look for, because it is within you. And then we can go past all these egoic traps and labyrinths that we make for ourselves, and that they've made for us as well through their programming. So yeah,
absolutely. And I want to add something onto that as well. It's about creativity. It's a massive part to play. And again, that's so endless. It's just endless in its many forms. For me, it's my music. My DJing. That's what I love to do and love to share. And about just who I am. And the conversations that I may have as well. So it's a lot of things that people lose, and stuff. But I had a friend, he talked for the first time the other day, and said, "You know what? I feel like picking up my guitar again and start making music." And I was just so pleased, pleased. Yeah, because I see so much pouring out of him, the creativity and stuff and all of that, and I love it. I just love seeing people being creative, and that's, I love reminding people of that as well. So
it's the destruction of the inner child. Again, the inner child is the creative one, or the anima as well. You can liken it to the anima. It's the if you're not healthy with your creative side, if you're not creating, then what are you doing here? You're just existing. And that for me is my worst nightmare, is to just exist for the sake of existing. not actually living life, not actually truly embodying, you know, what we are, which is that we are divine in essence. But we can't get to our divinity without going through the inner work and the inner journey. And I don't mean that in a new age sense at all, because there's so many new agers who think they're just divine and they're beautiful, but they're just narcissists and egotists. And you know what I mean is truly in the sense of not being invested in the self-image. You know, the self-image, if you allow the self-image of you to rule your life in the sense of what other people think of me, because that's what self-image is. It comes back to the super ego, you know, where the collective is, you're allowing the collective to shape you. And you know, it's a trap. It really is. And you think you because you're doing a meditation and a yoga and all this, that you're fulfilled, you know. And yet when somebody challenges you or triggers you, you flippantly just like, you know, don't even address it. You just suppress it even more. So yeah, be aware, but also true spirituality is to do with and I don't like to use the word spirituality, in fact, because it's such an overused word. It really is. It really is. You know, it's something I've talked to with Jay about, and you know, it's like it's to become solar. It's to become the shining one, to shine from your heart, to actually shine from the inside out, and be who you truly are.
The inner sun.
In the sense of, to have the inner sun shining. And that is what it means to be the son of God, or the son of the sun, you know, the shining one. And being at one with nature, being all that, you know, the inner child, embodying all that, those qualities of you, who you're truly born to be. Because, you know, adultism is a problem, as Michael Tsarion talks about. You know, adultism is again a form of deadening. You know, you become serious in life. There's no play anymore. There's no more creativity. And this is what we're coming back to. This is why I'm kind of like, you know, creativity. I find that creative people tend to be more in touch with their hearts. And you know, it's the same thing. Like, when I trust a man who cries than a man who doesn't. I trust a man. I trust a man who cries in front of me than a man who doesn't. Because that man who cries is so honest with himself that he's not afraid to let that emotion come out. Tears are so powerful, you know, because it's actually negativity leaving the body. So that's where emotions come into play, when you're, you know, you're allowing those tears and that release to come out of you, so that you can process the pain, and that you don't fall into addictions and toxic behaviors. So yeah, creativity is wonderful. I love writing poetry, writing, and you know, as a carpenter, I love working with my hands and creating stuff with wood. You know, just all types of things. You know, I like to just kind of like create as much as I can beauty in my life, because, you know, when I write poetry, I'm in a state of flow. I'm not in a state of trying to write an essay or it's like some sort of chore, but because it isn't. It's creativity is fun. You're just totally immersed. You're in the zone, you know, what you call in the zone, right? You're in the zone. There's nothing else happening to you in that moment other than just that, what you're creating, you know, or what you're writing, and so on. So yeah.
I mean, you know, for my you know, I love the stuff that you share, you know, on your creative channel. You know, beautiful.
Thank you.
I absolutely love it. And you know, I always come away from it feel very, very, very touched by the words that you share and the music that you play in the background and stuff. You know, it's lovely to see. Absolutely lovely to see and
Thank
to hear.
You, Kelvin. Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that. But from my, being a DJ, what does it for me is when I find two tracks that work so well together, and I feel this energy and this, it's just beautiful when you can get just a couple of tracks, put them together, and they work so well. And that's an art. It's a craft in itself. You're always learning all the time. And it's like alchemy. Because you're mixing elements of one track with elements from another track and stuff like that. So yeah, and you feel that energy and stuff. Music is great for energy. It's just
absolutely
does it for me big time. Music.
I mean, again, DJs are like flow masters of music. They know how they create what I call rivers of music. There's always a flow, and within that river, there's these currents of tracks that all flow into each other, and it's really an art. It's an art in itself.
It is, and you're taking not just yourself, but the people that are with you on that journey. And I love that. And I've been so privileged in the past to have played alongside some well-known people in my time. So the lovely people that I've met along the way on my journey and that. But I'm on a different journey now. Different path, as they say. But and that but I very much enjoyed that time as well. So it's all part of where I am today.
Find something creative. Absolutely, find something creative in your life, because if you don't have anything, it's time now to start finding it, because creativity is a form of self-expression, and how can you get to yourself without creativity? So it really is a great tool to use. And the most important thing is when you realize you're in that zone of creativity, it's a reminder of who we are, because time goes out the window in that moment. You have no concept of time. You have no concept of the world around you. You're in that zone. And that's what we used to do as children when we used to play. And that is something that's so natural within us. And that is the immortal state, because it's pure joy and bliss. And that is the state to hold in your life every day. Not to say that there'll be challenges that won't come. We're still in this avatar and in this world, and there's still going to be challenges, but that's part of growth, that's part of growing. But eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to have those bad days, but they're not going to phase you. You're not going to react off it negatively anymore. And that is the key, is to start changing your behavior to not become reactive of negative things, because if you do, then you go back into the loop.
That makes sense. That makes absolute inner sense, as I've heard you say. There's the real inner sense there. Absolutely. And that, I love these conversations, and the way that just we come out with the flow of wonderful things, that we share and stuff. So it's been a great chat tonight. Really enjoyed this chat, and I'm looking forward to our next one. And the next one, we've got a special guest that'll be joining us and stuff, so that'd be great as well. That'd be well, I might as well mention it anyway. It's Mark Devlin should be joining us for the next one and stuff now, which will be good, because we're being a DJ, the whole music industry thing, mind control, that really interests me, and I thought it'd be really good to have Mark Devlin on. So and Ahmed will be joining me for that as well, and hopefully we can pick his brains on a few things and stuff, because he's had a lot of experience in those sort of areas, lots of good research that he's done over the years and that. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to having you there with me as well, Ahmed, on that one. So
likewise, Kelvin. Very much looking forward to a podcast with Mark. And there's definitely certain questions I want to ask him about the whole music industry, and just about sound in general as well. The sound and frequency, that's there's many things we're going to cover, I'm sure.
I'll be going into one or two of his books and picking out a few things that I'll ask him questions on as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to that as well. So well, it's been an amazing hour or so, I think, and looking forward to our next time we get together. And just thank you again. It's been an honor to have you here, Ahmed.
Likewise, Kelvin.
sharing your heart. So thank
Always
you.
a joy. Always a
Yeah,
joy.
thank you. And
Bye.
yeah, and thank you to our listeners too. Much love.
Much love. Peace.